Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the Art of Procurement podcast. I'm Philip Ideson.
And I'm Kelly Barner.
And all through November, we're celebrating 5 years of the Art of Procurement podcast.
And to celebrate, we're answering some of the most frequently asked questions that we have received from listeners since the podcast began with a daily 5-minute show.
So the question we're going to cover today is, will automation replace procurement? And that's a question that I get all the time. And honestly, it depends on the company that you work for. So automation, when it comes to automating professional activities, is actually nothing new. You only need to look at the marketing function to see the impact that automation has had on a business function over the past 10 years or so. It's really just that procurement has been pretty slow to the party. So think about what in your job as a procurement professional could actually be automated. And you're probably thinking that some of the more transactional activities that you can do can be automated, and broader elements of the procure-to-pay cycle. Or that guided buying technology is a domain of commoditized products that are just bought through catalogs or online marketplaces. But what a lot of we do is strategic, right? It needs to be done by humans. And that's where I say, not so fast. So think of the sourcing process. There's a company actually that's automating the scoping, sourcing, negotiation, and contracting process for complex services. Another that's focusing more on the negotiation process alone. And in fact, there's really been an inflow of capital into the procurement industry right now, the likes that we have never seen before. So there are lots of different ideas that are being invested in terms of how technology can replace a lot of the human element of procurement. So I say all this to say that nothing that procurement does when it comes down to the actual physical activities that we do is immune to automation. And that might sound pretty grim, right? But it doesn't have to be. It's just a reality that I think it's a hard truth that we have to acknowledge. So with that in mind, if I go back to the original question, will automation replace procurement? I said it depends on the company that you work for, and this is why I say that. So does your leadership team look at procurement as a driver of business process or as a trusted advisor who plays an important role in helping them overcome tough challenges and take advantage of new opportunities? If procurement is seen as a process enabler, honestly, you're kind of in a tough spot because once those processes are automated, what is really left? And the reality is that you are seen as more of a process enabler because your leadership doesn't see a greater role for procurement, or that you haven't appropriately demonstrated that procurement can play a much greater role. So in those companies, it's going to be the transformation consultants or the procurement software sales reps that are pitching your C-suite with visions of replacing procurement altogether. All the people in procurement, we just slow down the process, upset your suppliers, generally cause trouble. Those are going to be pitches that are made that are going to resonate with some of the C-suite if they just look at you as being kind of a process enabler. And when that happens, that decision of the role of automation in procurement is going to be out of procurement's hands. And on the flip side, procurement in your company is, if it's seen as a trusted advisor, it's more of a relational activity, a relational kind of position that you take. You've built a value proposition that's so compelling that stakeholders are lining up wanting your expertise and wanting your guidance. If you work in a company like this, your procurement leadership will already be proactively looking at ways to automate as much of the traditional procurement role as possible. They'll be going to the board for investments because they want their team to have all the tools at their disposal to have an even bigger impact on both the bottom line and what's becoming even more critical, the top line. In these companies, talent and the investment in talent becomes even more important than ever before. So the question to ask in my mind is actually less about will automation replace procurement and more, are you going to be reactive about that or are you going to be proactive about it? And for me, that's really the existential question for all procurement teams right now. I want to thank you for listening to today's podcast. All the podcasts in this series can be found at artofprocurement.com/5 years. That's the number 5. That's artofprocurement.com/5 years.